The cargo ship Odyssey moved slowly through the empty darkness of space. Inside the ship, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair and looked at the screens in front of him. Everything seemed normal. His first officer, Lisa Grant, stood beside him and checked the navigation systems. They were carrying medical supplies and farming equipment to a colony called New Terra. It was supposed to be a simple job, nothing special or dangerous. The ship had 12 people working on it. Some were in the engine room. Others watched the computers, and a few were resting in their quarters. Danny Phillips was down in engineering, making sure the engines ran smoothly. Karen White sat at the communications desk listening to the quiet hum of empty space. Paul Henderson controlled the navigation, plotting their course through the asteroid belt they called the Kepler Belt. Jake liked these quiet moments. Space was peaceful when nobody bothered you. He had been a cargo captain for 8 years now, and he enjoyed the simple life of moving goods from one place to another. But Jake also knew that space could be dangerous. Pirates existed out here. Hostile alien races existed too. That was why every human ship, even the cargo ones, had weapons hidden inside them. Lisa suddenly looked up from her screen. Her face changed. Something was wrong. "Captain, I'm picking up 6 large ships dropping out of hyperspace," she said quickly. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake could hear the tension in it. Jake sat up straight. 6 ships appearing out of nowhere meant trouble. He pressed a button on his chair and the main screen changed. Now he could see them. 6 massive warships surrounded the Odyssey. They were dark red and covered in weapons. Jake recognized them immediately. Zarkon warships. The Zarkon were bad news. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were raiders and killers who attacked weaker ships and took whatever they wanted. They had been doing it for hundreds of years. Most species were terrified of them. When Zarkon ships appeared, people usually surrendered right away because fighting back only made things worse. "Red alert," Jake said calmly. "Everyone to battle stations." Alarms began ringing throughout the ship. The crew members who had been resting ran to their positions. Danny stayed in engineering but began powering up systems that most cargo ships did not have. Karen's hands moved across her communications board, getting ready to send emergency signals. Paul started calculating escape routes, though with 6 warships surrounding them, escape seemed impossible. A face appeared on the main screen. It was not a human face. The Zarkon looked like a mixture of an insect and a lizard, with multiple eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. This one wore some kind of uniform that meant he was in charge. "Human vessel," the Zarkon said through a translator that made his voice sound cold and mechanical. "This is Commander Vector of the Zarkon fleet. You are surrounded. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. If you resist, we will destroy you." The other crew members looked at Jake, waiting for his decision. Lisa stood perfectly still beside him. Jake could feel the tension in the air. Everyone knew what happened to people who got captured by the Zarkon. The stories were horrible. They did not treat prisoners well. Jake reached forward and pressed a button that opened a private channel to his crew only. The Zarkon could not hear what he said now. "Listen up, everyone," Jake said quietly. "We all know what we signed up for when we joined a human crew. We all went through the training. We all know what our ships can really do. Danny, how long until you can give me full power?" 2 minutes, Captain." Danny's voice came through the speakers from engineering. "I'm redirecting everything non-essential right now." "Good. Karen, send out the emergency beacon on all frequencies. Make sure it reaches the nearest military ships." "Already done, Captain," Karen replied. "Help should arrive in about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, Jake repeated. "We need to stay alive for 30 minutes. Paul, start evasive pattern ready. Lisa, weapon systems ready?" "Yes, Captain," Lisa said. A small smile appeared on her face. "All hidden weapons are armed and ready to deploy." Jake looked at the Zarkon commander on the screen again. Vector was waiting for an answer. He probably expected the humans to surrender immediately like everyone else did. The Zarkon had attacked hundreds of different species over the years. They had learned that most civilizations valued peace and life over fighting. Most species would rather surrender than die. But humans were different. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other on Earth. They had wars that killed millions. They had developed weapons that could destroy entire cities. When humans finally left Earth and went to the stars, they brought all those lessons with them. They built their ships tough. They trained every crew member for combat. They hid weapons on every vessel, even the cargo ships. The Galactic Council had complained about this many times. They said humans were too violent, too militaristic, They said humans should be more peaceful like other spacefaring species. But humans remembered what happened when they were not prepared. They remembered the first alien race that attacked Earth colonies. They remembered the unprepared ships that got destroyed. They remembered the people who died because they could not fight back. Never again. That was what humanity decided. Every human ship would be able to defend itself. Every human crew would know how to fight. It did not matter if you were a cargo hauler or a military destroyer. If you flew under a human flag, you were ready for war. Jake switched back to the open channel so Vector could hear him. "Commander Vector," Jake said clearly. His voice was steady and calm. "I want you to understand something. You think you've trapped a helpless cargo ship. You think we will surrender like all the others. You think this will be easy?" Jake paused for a moment. Behind him, his crew waited. The weapon systems were ready. The engines were ready. Everything was ready. "You've made a terrible mistake," Jake finished. On the screen, Vector's face changed. He looked confused for a second, then angry. He clearly thought the human was just trying to sound brave. He had heard empty threats before from scared captains. He did not believe this would be any different. "You have 30 seconds to surrender," Vector said. "Or we will open fire." Jake looked at Lisa. She nodded. The countdown began. 30 seconds, 29, 28, the Odyssey waited. Space was quiet. The 6 Zarkon warships surrounded them like hungry predators. Everything was about to change. 20 seconds, 19, 18. Jake's finger moved closer to the button that would activate everything. 10 seconds, 9, 8. The Zarkon ships charged their weapons. Blue light began glowing along their hulls. 3, 2, 1. "Now," Jake said. Part 2, the Zarkon weapons fired. 6 ships launched their attack at the same time. Bright blue energy beams cut through the darkness of space, all aimed at the small human cargo ship. Commander Vector watched his screens and smiled. This would be over in seconds. The human ship would be disabled and helpless. Then his crew would board it and take everything valuable. It was the same thing he had done 1,000 times before. But something went wrong. The Odyssey moved. It did not move like a slow cargo ship. It moved fast, faster than any cargo ship should be able to move. The ship rolled to the left and dove down at the same time. All 6 energy beams passed through the empty space where the Odyssey had been just a moment before. "Impossible," Vector said out loud. His tactical officer looked at the screens with confusion on his face. Inside the Odyssey, Danny had just done something amazing. He had taken all the power from the cargo bay life support, the extra lighting, the recreation room, and even the heating in half the ship. All that power went straight to the engines and shields. The cargo ship suddenly had as much power as a military vessel. "Nice driving, Paul," Jake said as the navigator made the ship dance through space. "Just getting started, Captain," Paul replied. His hands moved across the controls like he was playing a musical instrument. Lisa pressed several buttons on her console. Along the hull of the Odyssey, hidden panels slid open. What came out were not the small defense lasers that most cargo ships carried. These were real weapons. Military-grade railguns appeared from hidden compartments. Missile launchers emerged from what looked like normal hull plating. "Weapons free," Lisa announced. Targeting the closest ship, the Odyssey fired back. Solid metal slugs shot out of the railguns at incredible speed. These were not energy weapons that the Zarkon shields were designed to stop. These were physical objects moving at almost the speed of light. The Zarkon had not seen weapons like this in centuries. Most civilized species used energy weapons because they were cleaner and more efficient, but humans still used bullets. Big, fast, devastating bullets. The metal slugs hit the shields of the nearest Zarkon warship. The shields flickered and sparked. They were designed to deflect energy, not solid matter moving that fast. The shields failed. The slugs continued forward and smashed into the hull of the warship. Holes appeared in the armor. Atmosphere vented into space. "Target hit," Lisa reported. "Their shields are down and they have hull damage." Vector could not believe what he was seeing. A cargo ship was fighting back. Not just fighting back, but actually damaging his warships. This had never happened before. His face showed shock, then rage. "All ships concentrate fire on that vessel," he screamed into his communication system. "Destroy it now." The Zarkon warships began moving into a better attack formation. They were big and powerful, but they moved slowly. The Odyssey kept dancing between them like a small fish avoiding sharks. Paul knew exactly what he was doing. He had trained for this his entire career. Every human ship captain and navigator spent hundreds of hours learning combat maneuvers. It was required training even for civilian crews. Karen worked at her communications station, coordinating with Paul and Lisa. She called out target locations and incoming fire. Danny kept the power flowing from engineering, pushing the engines beyond their normal limits. The ship shook and rattled, but it held together. Missiles away, Lisa said calmly. 4 missiles launched from the Odyssey and curved through space toward a second Zarkon ship. The Zarkon tried to shoot down the missiles, but they were too fast and moved in unpredictable patterns. 3 of the 4 missiles hit their target. Explosions bloomed along the port side of the warship. Its weapons went offline. 2 ships damaged, Jake observed. 4 more to go. How long until help arrives, Karen? 22 minutes, Captain, Karen answered. 22 minutes. They had to survive 22 more minutes against 4 undamaged warships. The odds were not good, but they were better than surrender. The Zarkon ships began firing again. This time they spread out, trying to catch the Odyssey in crossfire. Blue energy beams came from multiple directions. Paul could not dodge them all. Some of the beams hit the shields, the ship shook violently. Lights flickered on the bridge. Sparks flew from one of the control panels. Karen quickly put out a small fire with an extinguisher she kept nearby. Shields at 60%, Lisa reported. Port shield is weaker. They are concentrating fire there. Danny, can you reinforce the port shield? Jake asked. Working on it, Captain. Danny's voice came back. But I'm already pushing everything to maximum. If I give you more shield power, I have to take it from weapons or engines. Keep the weapons, Jake decided. We need to hurt them more than they hurt us. The battle continued. The Odyssey fired railguns and missiles constantly. The Zarkon ships fired their energy weapons. Space between them was filled with light and explosions. The small human ship kept moving, never staying in one place long enough to be an easy target. Inside the Zarkon command ship, Vector was becoming desperate. His fleet of 6 ships was supposed to be overwhelming force. They should have captured this cargo ship in minutes. Instead, 2 of his ships were damaged and his crew was starting to look worried. How could one small ship fight like this? Commander, should we retreat? His tactical officer asked carefully, suggesting retreat was dangerous. Vector had killed officers for less, but Vector was thinking the same thing. This was not going as planned. He had never seen a cargo ship fight like a military vessel. He had never seen shields fail against kinetic weapons. He had never had this much trouble with such a small target. No, Vector said finally. We have 4 ships still fully functional. They have 1 small cargo vessel. We will win. We must win. Our reputation depends on it. Back on the Odyssey, the crew was getting tired. Combat was exhausting. Every decision had to be made in seconds. Every mistake could be fatal. Sweat ran down Paul's face as he concentrated on the navigation. Lisa's hands moved constantly across her weapons controls. Karen's voice never stopped calling out information. Danny worked frantically in engineering, fixing small problems before they became big ones. Shields at 40%, Lisa announced. That last hit was bad. Jake looked at the timer. 16 minutes until help arrived. Could they last 16 more minutes? We need to even the odds, Jake said. Lisa, target their command ship. The big one in the middle. Load everything we have left. Captain, if we use everything, we will not have many weapons left for defense, Lisa warned. I know, Jake said. But if we damage their commander's ship badly enough, maybe the others will think twice about continuing. Understood, Lisa said. Her fingers moved across the controls. All remaining missiles locked on target. Railguns ready. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The Odyssey released everything it had. Every missile, every railgun, every weapon fired at once toward Vector's command ship. The amount of firepower was impressive for such a small vessel. Vector saw it coming. His eyes went wide with fear. Evasive action, he shouted. But his ship was too big and slow. The missiles and railgun slugs hit the command ship like a hammer. Shields failed immediately under the concentrated assault. Explosions ripped through the hull. The bridge shook so hard that Vector fell from his chair. Lights went out. Emergency systems activated. Damage reports flooded in from all sections of the ship. The command ship was still flying. But it was hurt badly, and then at that exact moment, space began to ripple and tear. Hyperspace windows opened. Human military ships had arrived. Part 3-3. Human warships appeared in space like ghosts materializing from nowhere. They were not as big as the Zarkon vessels, but they moved with deadly purpose. The destroyer Valiant came through first, followed closely by two frigates named Defiant and Resolute. Small fighter craft launched from the Valiant like angry insects leaving a nest. Captain Henry Shaw commanded the Valiant. He was a veteran who had fought in 3 different wars. His ship had seen combat dozens of times. When he received the emergency beacon from the Odyssey, he brought his small task force at maximum speed. Now he surveyed the battlefield in front of him and quickly understood the situation. "Analysis," Henry said to his tactical officer. 6 Zarkon warships, sir. 3 are damaged, including their command vessel. 1 human cargo ship, the Odyssey, still active, but shields are low. The cargo ship has been fighting alone for approximately 14 minutes. Henry allowed himself a small smile. 14 minutes against 6 Zarkon ships. The Odyssey's crew had done well. Very well. But now it was time to end this. "Open a channel to all Zarkon vessels," Henry ordered, "and get me a line to the Odyssey." A moment later, Jake's face appeared on one screen while Commander Vector appeared on another. Jake looked tired but determined. Vector looked shocked and afraid. "Captain Morrison, this is Captain Shaw of the Valiant. Good work holding them off. We will take it from here. Fall back and make repairs." "Understood, Captain Shaw. Thank you for the help," Jake replied. Relief was clear in his voice. Henry turned his attention to Vector. "Commander Vector of the Zarkon fleet, you attacked a human vessel in violation of galactic law. You are now facing 3 human military ships. I strongly suggest you surrender immediately." Vector's face showed many emotions at once. Anger, fear, confusion, and pride all fought for control. He had never surrendered before. The Zarkon did not surrender. They were the predators, not the prey. "You only have 3 ships," Vector said, trying to sound confident. "We still outnumber you." Henry's expression did not change. "I am going to give you 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, we will destroy every single one of your ships. The choice is yours." On the frigates Defiant and Resolute, Captains Nicole Brown and Stephen Clark prepared their ships for combat. Nicole commanded the Defiant with precision and skill. She had graduated top of her class from the Naval Academy. Stephen led the Resolute with the experience of someone who had been fighting in space for 15 years. Both of them waited for Henry's orders. The human fighter craft moved into attack positions. Lieutenant Chris Turner led one squadron while Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez commanded another. These pilots were the best of the best. They trained constantly, flying simulations and real practice missions. Each pilot had thousands of hours of experience. Vector looked at his own screens. His command ship was badly damaged. 2 other ships were not much better. He still had 3 functional warships, but they were facing fresh human military vessels. And if one cargo ship could damage his fleet so badly, what could real warships do? "Commander, we should retreat," his tactical officer said again, more urgently this time. "Retreat where?" Vector snapped. "They came out of hyperspace. They can follow us anywhere we go." The 30 seconds passed. Vector had not responded. "Very well," Henry said quietly. "All ships open fire." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for years to come. The human warships attacked with coordinated precision. They did not just shoot randomly. Every movement, every shot, every maneuver was planned and executed perfectly. The Valiant's main railguns fired at the nearest functional Zarkon warship. The slugs tore through shields and armor like they were paper. Nicole's Defiant circled around and hit another ship from the side, targeting its engine sections. Stephen's Resolute launched a full spread of missiles at the 3rd functional warship. The fighter craft were even more devastating. They were too small and fast for the big Zarkon guns to track. Chris Turner's squadron attacked weapon systems, disabling them one by one. Amy Rodriguez's fighters went after engines and power generators. The Zarkon crews tried to defend themselves, but it was useless. They had never trained against enemies who moved this fast or fought this smart. In less than 5 minutes, all 3 of the remaining functional Zarkon warships were crippled. They could not move, could not shoot, could barely keep life support running. "All Zarkon vessels, this is Captain Shaw. I am not going to ask again. Surrender now or die." This time, Vector did not hesitate. His pride was gone, replaced by the simple desire to survive. "We surrender," he said, his voice flat and defeated. "We surrender." Henry nodded to his crew. "Ceasefire. Prepare boarding parties. I want every Zarkon ship secured and searched." Teams of human marines prepared to board the alien vessels. Commander Frank Hayes led the main boarding party. He was a big man with scars on his face from previous battles. Beside him, Lieutenant Sophie Martin checked her weapons and equipment. Sophie was small but fierce, known for being one of the toughest Marines in the fleet. The boarding parties used small shuttles to cross from the human ships to the Zarkan vessels. They moved carefully, knowing the aliens might try to fight even after surrendering. But the Zarkan crews were completely broken. They offered no resistance. Frank's team boarded the command ship first. They found Vector sitting in his damaged bridge, staring at nothing. The proud commander, who had expected an easy victory, looked like a broken toy. "Commander Vector, you are under arrest," Frank said formally. "Your ship and crew are now prisoners of the human military." Vector did not respond. He simply stood up and allowed the Marines to take him away. As the boarding parties searched the Zarkan ships, they found terrible things. The cargo holds were filled with stolen goods from a dozen different species. The computers contained records of attacks on peaceful ships and colonies. Worst of all, they found prisoners. Beings from various races locked in small cells, treated horribly, some sick or injured. Sophie found a holding area with 12 prisoners. They looked scared when they first saw the human Marines, thinking they were just different captors. But Sophie spoke gently to them. "You are safe now. We are humans. We are here to help you. The Zarkan cannot hurt you anymore." One of the prisoners, a small blue creature, began crying with relief. Others simply collapsed, too weak to stand any longer. "Get medical teams over here immediately," Sophie called into her radio. "We have prisoners who need help right now." Back on the Valiant, Henry reviewed the battle reports. The human ships had taken almost no damage. The Odyssey was already making repairs and would be fine. All 6 Zarkan warships were captured. Best of all, no humans had died. He opened a channel to Jake Morrison. "Captain Morrison, your crew did an outstanding job. You kept those ships busy long enough for us to arrive. If you had surrendered, those prisoners we found would still be in Zarkan hands. You saved lives today." Jake looked embarrassed by the praise. "We just did what any human crew would do, sir. We did not want to surrender to people like that." "Well, you fought well. Take your ship to the nearest station for proper repairs. The Navy will cover the costs." "Thank you, Captain Shaw. Morrison out." Henry sat back in his chair and thought about what had happened. The Zarkan had made a huge mistake. They had thought humans were soft, easy targets like most other species. They had learned the truth the hard way. Nicole's voice came over the communication system. "Captain Shaw, we have finished securing all enemy vessels. What are your orders?" "Take them to the nearest military station. I want every piece of data from their computers. I want to know everywhere they have been, everything they have done. The Zarkan have been raiding for too long. It is time someone stopped them." "Understood, sir." Stephen added his report. "Sir, the prisoners are receiving medical care. Some of them have been held for months. They are very grateful to be rescued." Henry nodded even though Stephen could not see him. "Good. Make sure they get everything they need. Contact their home governments and arrange for them to be returned safely." As the human ships prepared to move the captured Zarkan vessels, Henry thought about what message this would send to the galaxy. Today, humanity had shown that they were not victims. They were protectors. They were warriors. And they did not tolerate bullies. Part 4. 3 days after the battle, Captain Henry Shaw sat in his ready room preparing a message that would be broadcast across the entire galaxy. He had spent hours reviewing footage from the battle, reading reports from the boarding parties, and talking with intelligence officers. What they had discovered on the Zarkan ships was worse than anyone had imagined. The Zarkan had not just been attacking human vessels. They had been raiding peaceful ships and colonies from dozens of species for decades. The computer records showed hundreds of attacks, thousands of victims, massive amounts of stolen goods. They had operated with complete impunity because most species were too afraid to fight back. Lieutenant Sophie Martin entered the ready room with a data pad. Her face looked tired. She had been working with the rescued prisoners for days, helping them recover and documenting their stories. "Captain, you need to see this," Sophie said, handing him the pad. "These are statements from the prisoners we rescued. Some of them have been held for over a year. The things the Zarkan did to them." Henry read through the statements. His jaw tightened with anger. The Zarkan had not treated their prisoners as living beings. They had been cruel beyond necessity, violent beyond reason. "Make sure every single one of these statements is included in my report to command. Henry said. "The galaxy needs to know what the Zarkon really are." "Yes, sir," Sophie replied. She hesitated at the door. "Sir, do you think this will change anything? Will other species finally stand up to them?" "I hope so, Lieutenant. I truly hope so." After Sophie left, Henry began recording his message. He knew it would be seen by billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. What he said now mattered. "This is Captain Henry Shaw of the human destroyer Valiant. 3 days ago, 6 Zarkon warships attacked a human cargo vessel in neutral space. The cargo ship, the Odyssey, defended itself until military reinforcements could arrive. The Zarkon fleet has been captured and their crews are now prisoners." Henry paused and brought up footage from the battle. The images showed the Odyssey fighting against impossible odds. Then the arrival of human warships and the quick defeat of the Zarkon. During the search of the captured vessels, we discovered evidence of numerous war crimes. The Zarkon have been attacking peaceful ships for decades. They have stolen goods worth billions of credits. They have taken prisoners from multiple species and treated them with extreme cruelty. We have rescued these prisoners and are returning them to their homes. More images appeared on the screen. These showed the rescued prisoners, the stolen goods, the records of attacks. Let me be very clear about something. Humanity tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We tried being good neighbors in this galaxy. But we will not tolerate attacks on our people. We will not allow raiders to threaten peaceful commerce. And we will not stand by while innocents suffer." Henry's voice became harder, more forceful. "The Zarkon thought they could attack a human ship with no consequences. They thought we would surrender like other species have done. They were wrong. Any species that attacks human vessels will face the full might of human military power. We have been preparing for this since we first left Earth. We learned hard lessons in our history, and we will not forget them." He brought up technical specifications from the battle, showing how human weapons and tactics had overwhelmed the larger Zarkon force. These battle recordings are being released to the galactic community so that military analysts can study them. We want everyone to understand what human ships are capable of. We are not hiding our strength. We want potential enemies to know exactly what they will face if they choose conflict. The message continued with specific details about the Zarkon crimes, the prisoners, and the evidence collected. Henry made sure everything was documented and verifiable. He wanted no room for doubt or argument. "Finally, I want to address the Galactic Council directly. Some of you have criticized humanity for our military readiness. You have called us too violent, too aggressive. But where were you when the Zarkon were raiding peaceful species? Where were your fleets when innocent beings were being captured and abused? We built our ships and trained our crews because we learned that peace is only possible when good people are willing to fight for it." Henry ended the recording and sent it through every communication channel available. Within hours, it would reach every corner of known space. The reaction was immediate and intense. On Earth, people celebrated. The crew of the Odyssey were treated as heroes. Jake Morrison gave interviews where he tried to downplay what his crew had done, but nobody listened. They wanted heroes, and the Odyssey crew fit perfectly. Throughout human space, there was a surge of pride and confidence. Humanity had been the newcomers to galactic society, often looked down upon by older civilizations. Now they had shown that youth and vigor could defeat age and arrogance. But the reactions from alien species were more complicated. Some were grateful. The Terrene Collective, a peaceful trading society that had suffered from Zarkon raids for years, immediately contacted Earth requesting a meeting. Their ambassador, a tall being with green skin and 4 arms, appeared on human news broadcasts. "Humanity has done what we could not. They fought back against the raiders. They rescued prisoners. They showed courage. The Terrene Collective wishes to establish formal relations with Earth and discuss mutual protection." Within a week, 5 different species had requested similar meetings. They wanted trade agreements, defense pacts, technology exchanges. Humanity suddenly found itself with more friends than they had ever had before. Other species reacted with fear. The Vorquin Empire, a large and powerful civilization, watched the battle footage with growing concern. Their military analysts studied every detail. They realized that in a direct conflict, human tactics and weapons might give them a significant advantage despite the Vorquin having more ships. The Vorquin Emperor called an emergency meeting of his war council. "These humans are dangerous. They fight like demons. We need to either ally with them or prepare for them to become enemies. Perhaps we should seek technology trade," one advisor suggested. Their kinetic weapons are devastating. We could benefit from understanding how they work. Agreed, the Emperor said. Contact the human government. Tell them we wish to discuss trade and friendship. The most interesting reaction came from the Galactic Council itself. This was the governing body that supposedly maintained peace and order in the galaxy. They held an emergency session to discuss the Zarkon incident. Some council members were outraged at humanity. A representative from the Peltian species stood up and gave an angry speech. The humans destroyed 6 ships and took prisoners. This is excessive force. This is the kind of violence we have tried to eliminate from civilized space. The Council should sanction Earth for this action. But other Council members disagreed. A small yellow being from the Kirik species responded. Excessive force? The Zarkon attacked first. The humans defended themselves. Then they rescued prisoners that we all knew existed but did nothing to help. I think the real question is why the Council did not act against the Zarkon years ago. This started a huge argument that lasted for hours. Eventually, they took a vote. The motion to sanction humanity failed. Instead, the Council passed a resolution thanking humanity for rescuing the prisoners and asking them to share evidence of Zarkon crimes. It was a diplomatic way of admitting that the Council had failed to deal with the Zarkon problem, and humanity had succeeded where they had not. Back on the Valiant, Henry received new orders from Human Military Command. He was being promoted and given command of a new task force. His mission was to hunt down remaining Zarkon pirate fleets and protect shipping lanes. Nicole Brown and Stephen Clark would serve under him with their frigates. They would also get additional ships, including 2 more destroyers and a light carrier with fighter squadrons. It was a significant force showing that Earth was serious about ending the Zarkon threat. Henry called a meeting with his senior officers. Nicole and Stephen appeared on screens, broadcasting from their own ships. You have all seen our new orders, Henry began. We are going to spend the next few months clearing out Zarkon raiders. It will not be easy, and it will not be safe. But it is necessary. The galaxy has lived under the threat of these pirates for too long. What about other species? Nicole asked. Will they help us? Some will, Henry replied. The Terrene are providing intelligence about Zarkon base locations. A few other species are offering support, but mostly this will be a human operation. Stephen spoke up. Good, we do not need help. We proved that in the first battle. Henry smiled slightly. Confidence is good, Captain Clark, but do not let it become arrogance. The Zarkon will learn from their defeat. The next battle might be harder. We will be ready, sir, Stephen said firmly. The meeting ended and Henry looked out at the stars. Humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. Now they had to follow through. Part 5-6 months had passed since the ambush of the Odyssey. The story had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, growing with each telling. In some versions, the Odyssey had fought off 20 Zarkon ships. In others, Captain Jake Morrison had personally challenged their commander to single combat. The truth was impressive enough, but people loved to embellish. Jake himself found the attention uncomfortable. He had returned to Earth only once for a ceremony where politicians gave him medals and made speeches. He smiled politely and said the right things, but he was eager to get back to space. He was a cargo captain, not a celebrity. The Odyssey had been fully repaired, upgraded even, with the newest weapons and shields the military could provide. Now Jake and his crew were back to work, running supplies to colonies, but things were different now. When the Odyssey arrived at ports, other ships moved aside respectfully. Station masters gave them priority docking. Other crews wanted to buy them drinks and hear the story firsthand. Jake was always polite but never comfortable with it. Lisa Grant, his first officer, found it amusing. You are famous, Captain. Might as well enjoy it. I just want to do my job, Jake replied. All this attention makes it harder. Danny Phillips had a different perspective. The engineer had been offered positions on military ships with higher pay and better equipment. He turned them all down. The Odyssey is my ship, he told the recruiters. I am not leaving her. Karen White and Paul Henderson felt the same way. They were a crew, a family. The battle had bonded them in ways that went beyond normal working relationships. They had faced death together and survived. That meant something. One thing had changed for all of them, though. They received escort offers on almost every route now. Other species wanted human ships traveling with their convoys. The presence of even a single human vessel, especially one as famous as the Odyssey, made pirates think twice about attacking. Captain Henry Shaw and his task force had been busy during those 6 months. They hunted Zarkon raiders throughout known space. Battle after battle, they found pirate bases and destroyed them. They freed more prisoners. They recovered stolen goods worth billions. The Zarkon pirate fleets, which had terrorized shipping lanes for decades, were collapsing. Some groups tried to fight. They lost, others tried to hide. The humans found them anyway, often with intelligence provided by grateful species who had suffered from Zarkon raids for years. Commander Vector, the Zarkon leader who had attacked the Odyssey, sat in a rehabilitation facility on a human-controlled moon. He was not in a prison cell. The humans did not believe in pure punishment without purpose. Instead, he was in a program designed to reform criminals and teach them better ways. Every day, Vector attended classes about ethics, law, and peaceful coexistence. He was required to meet with victims of Zarkon raids and hear their stories. He worked in a factory making components for civilian ships, earning a small wage that was sent to a fund for compensating victims. It was humiliating for a proud Zarkon warrior. But it was also enlightening. Slowly, very slowly, Vector began to understand what his people had been doing wrong. He began to see his victims as real beings with lives and feelings, not just prey to be hunted. One day, a human counselor named Betty Sullivan sat down with him for their weekly session. "How are you feeling today, Vector?" she asked. Confused, he admitted. In the beginning, he had refused to speak to his counselors. Now he found their conversations helpful. "My people have raided and fought for hundreds of years. It is what we do, what we are. But now I see it was wrong. How do I reconcile these things?" Betty nodded sympathetically. "That is a hard question. Humans struggled with similar issues. We fought each other for thousands of years. We did terrible things to each other. But we learned to change. Not all at once and not perfectly, but we changed. Your people can too. Will the galaxy ever forgive us?" Vector asked quietly. Some will not," Betty said honestly. "But forgiveness starts with acknowledging what was done wrong and working to make it right. You are doing that. It matters." Meanwhile, in the halls of the Galactic Council, a major debate was taking place. The topic was humanity and their role in galactic society. The council chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all with different opinions about these aggressive newcomers. Ambassador Patricia Moore represented humanity at the council. She was a skilled diplomat who had spent years building relationships with other species. Now she stood at the speaker's podium defending her species' actions. "Some of you have called humanity too violent, too militaristic," Patricia said calmly. "You say we should disarm, that we should trust in the council to maintain peace and order. But I ask you this, where was the council when the Zarkon were raiding? Where was the collective security you promised?" A Pelthine representative stood up angrily. "We were working through diplomatic channels. Violence should always be a last resort." "Diplomatic channels," Patricia repeated. "For how many years? How many beings suffered while you talked? Humanity did not start that fight. We finished it. And in doing so, we freed prisoners from a dozen different species. Prisoners that the council knew about but did nothing to rescue." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species supported humanity. Others were afraid of them. Still others were simply confused about how to deal with this young, aggressive civilization. Finally, the council chairman, an ancient being from a species that had been traveling space for millennia, called for order. "Ambassador Moore, the council acknowledges that humanity has provided a valuable service in dealing with the Zarkon threat. However, we remain concerned about the militarization of your civilian fleet. Can you explain why this is necessary?" Patricia had prepared for this question. "Of course, Chairman. Humanity learned painful lessons in our early days of space exploration. We sent out peaceful colony ships with minimal defenses. 3 different times, those ships were attacked by hostile species. Thousands of humans died because they could not defend themselves. After the 3rd incident, we made a decision. Never again would human ships be helpless. Every vessel, civilian or military, would have the ability to fight back. This policy has saved countless lives, human and non-human." She paused and looked around the chamber. "We do not seek conflict. We seek to live peacefully and trade fairly. But we will not be victims. Any species that respects our right to exist will find humanity to be the best of friends. Any species that attacks us will find humanity to be the worst of enemies. It is that simple." The chairman considered her words carefully. "The council will take your statement under advisement. This session is adjourned. As the representatives filed out, several approached Patricia to speak privately. The Terrene ambassador wanted to finalize their defense pact. The Vorkon representative wanted to discuss technology trade. Even a few species that had initially been hostile to humanity now sought friendly relations. In the following weeks, humanity signed formal agreements with 17 different species. These were not just trade deals, but mutual defense pacts, cultural exchanges, and technology sharing arrangements. Humanity was quickly becoming a major player in galactic politics. Earth's economy boomed. Human ships traveled freely through space, often escorting vessels from other species. Human military contractors found eager buyers for their weapons technology. Human tactics were studied in alien military academies. The species that had been dismissed as primitive newcomers just a few years ago was now respected and sometimes feared. On the Odyssey, Jake received another mission assignment. They were to carry agricultural equipment to a colony on the far edge of explored space. It was a long route through areas that used to be dangerous due to pirates. "Looks like a quiet run," Lisa observed as she reviewed the route. "Let's hope so," Jake replied. "But stay alert. There might still be some Zarkon groups out there." Danny was already checking the weapon systems, making sure everything was ready just in case. Karen had the communications array tuned to emergency frequencies. Paul had multiple escape routes programmed into the navigation computer. They were ready for anything. It was the human way. As the Odyssey undocked from the station and accelerated toward the hyperspace jump point, Jake thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, they had been an unremarkable cargo crew doing unremarkable work. Now they were famous throughout the galaxy. But fame did not matter to Jake. What mattered was that they had stood up when challenged. They had fought when they could have surrendered. They had proven that humans were not prey. He smiled slightly and settled back in his command chair. The stars beckoned and there was work to do. Behind them, the legend of the Odyssey continued to grow. The story was told in bars and ships across the galaxy. It was taught in schools and military academies. It became a symbol of what humanity represented, a species that would never surrender, never give up, never stop fighting for what was right. The Zarkon had attacked a human ship expecting surrender. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. They had encountered a species forged in the fires of 10,000 years of warfare on a harsh world. A species that had learned to survive, to adapt, to overcome any challenge. The galaxy had many old species with long histories, but it had never